Well, hello there. Thanks for joining me. I am Dr. Jen, and this is My Life as a Landlord. I love giving you different formats for the podcast episodes so you never know what you're going to get. Today is part 4 of what I'm calling Rental Roundtable Toastmasters style. You may recall that in early 2025, I was invited to speak at a Toastmasters club online called Money Matters. During that meeting, we played a Toastmasters game called Table Topics, designed to make you think on your feet. At that meeting, the table topics was, of course, about rentals, which is why I was speaking at that meeting. So I'm back today with my favorite Toastmasters, Dan Dyble and Karen Hall. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
It's good to be here. Thanks.
Excellent. Now, this is part 4 of a 5-part series. So if you've missed the first 3 parts, that's okay. Just go back in the library. It's episodes 151, 154, 158, where we conquered topics of ethical dilemmas, landlord rights and responsibilities, as well as rental affordability. Today, as part 4, we are discussing the awkward topic of landlording, power, and dynamics. But before we get into that, let's talk Toastmasters. Tell us about Toastmasters, Karen, please.
Well, Toastmasters is an organization. It's a not-for-profit organization that has been around for over 100 years. It assists its members with improving their communication skills and their leadership skills. Your communication skills involve more than just speaking in public. Day-to-day communications, listening to people, listening to hear what they're saying rather than to respond. And then the leadership, allowing you to take on leadership roles and challenge yourself to grow. Dan, did you want to add?
Yeah. So for me, with Toastmasters and managing properties, the thing I appreciate that it does for me as a property manager and property owner, and now as a tenant with one of my businesses, is it allows me to have certainty in my speech when I go in. And particularly, I know Jen loves difficult conversations. Most people don't. I did my master's thesis on conflict. But for me, what it really does is it gives you that ability to manage difficult situations and to speak coherently and to pace yourself and to ensure that what you speak is what you intend, not what you emote. And for me, it's really about that practice, the way that you get good at things, the way you get good at property management and making money is by trying things and then doing it again. And rather than trying things and doing it, waiting until you're in the moment, this gives you the opportunity to practice in a safe place. And I don't care where you are in the world. We've got over 200,000 members and thousands, literally thousands of clubs in any country that you want to go to. So anywhere where you're getting this podcast, there is a Toastmasters. Just go to Toastmasters International, and that's Google that, and you'll find a club near me, and you can choose whether you want it within 2 kilometers, which is about a mile, folks, and things. So you can choose how far you want to travel, whether you're going to be walking, driving, taking a bus to get there. So do dig in. And we will put a link to our club, which is an online club about money matters, because in this line of work, managing properties, money matters.
Excellent, excellent. Well, as a former Toastmaster, as a current Toastmaster, I'm excited to have you both back on, I know. But let's talk a little bit more about this idea of table topics. I mean, a lot of people, they might have heard of Toastmasters, but maybe they don't know what table topics is. Karen, I'm wondering if you would tell us all what table topics is all about.
Table topics is something that every club has. It is a part of the meeting where members and guests are invited to practice their impromptu speaking. The table topics master will ask a question and then call upon someone to come and respond. The respondent is asked to provide a response, which would be a mini speech, which would have an opening, a body, and a closing, and speak for 1 minute to 2 minutes. That person is then evaluated at the end. Dan, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that's about got it. The one thing I will say is, just so you think about, we talk about impromptu speaking,
Yeah.
and every conversation you have in your life is impromptu. I've never been handed a script for a conversation with Jen or Karen when I'm just living life. So if we go for coffee, it's impromptu. So it's not just about being impromptu, it's about being given a topic at the last moment, having somebody come up to you and give you a topic and then trying to be coherent with it. So it's really a very valuable tool. It's great also if you've got kids or if you're looking for a job yourself, interviewing skills. You know, I take a look at the medical doctors who have come through with us. And in my other club, I belong to 2 clubs. In my other club, we had 8 doctors coming out of school looking for opportunities, and they were struggling with it. All of them launched successfully after about 6 or 8 months with us.
Amazing. That's amazing. Well, I'm excited to jump into today's topic. This is a very awkward one. This is all about power and dynamics in rentals. And so as we've done in previous episodes, there's 3 questions we're going to do table topic style. And let's see. Who wants to go first? I can go first.
Actually, I'm happy to if you want.
You're happy to go first? All right. All right, here, Dan.
Sure.
Here's the
Yeah.
question.
So, all
You
right.
ready?
Hmm.
Do landlords have too much power over tenants? Do
Oh,
landlords have too much
that's
power over
great.
tenants?
So one thing to be aware of is that that really changes depending on what state, province, or country you're in. It's huge. When I was a landlord in Alberta, I had a lot more control over my property and capacity to do what I wanted to do with my property than I do here in British Columbia, for example. And I know things are very different for Jen's properties here in British Columbia than they are in Maui or her properties down in Texas. For me, the answer is it's not so much the power over, and this is both for the tenant and the landlord. It's about making sure that you know what your rights are, both as a landlord and a tenant, and make sure that you know what the landlord's rights are if you're a tenant, not just your rights. And then it's about how you engage with people. Power isn't just based on rule of law. Power is based on how you engage with people. And really, to me, I can be a landlord where I am clear with the rules that I expect, clear with my expectations when I start, and I can deal with deviations from that as we go along, because every plan is just what you're going to deviate from. Everybody has special circumstances that as landlords we need to consider, and things happen when we're tenants for our landlords that will impact us. And so for me, there is a very different power dynamic legally, and yet to a great extent, if you build a proper relationship, a collaborative relationship between tenants and landlords to begin with, if you stay in communication, you stay engaged, then you will find that the power balance is equitable. I'm complete.
Excellent. Excellent. Karen, you want to go next? You want me to go?
Oh, I'll go next. I'll go
Okay.
next. I agree with virtually everything that Dan has said. Um, Again, it depends upon where your property is. I know in Ontario, I have dealt with people there that have property and they have so much difficulty with their tenants trying to evict them when the tenants are problem tenants because it takes so long to get to the residential tenancy branch or whatever it is called there in order to have them evicted. And there are tenants who know how to play the rules
Hmm.
or how to play the
Mm.
system. I have a niece I haven't seen in many years who she and her husband were renters and would frequently talk about how they'd gotten their eviction notice again because they hadn't paid their rent or whatever. And they knew that by the time the landlord filed, they would pay at that point and start all over again and not pay their rent for a
Mm.
couple of months. So, but on the other hand, you do have some landlords who will make things so difficult for the tenants
Mhm.
that the tenants don't want to live there. So the power balance, depending upon where you are and who the people are, can shift. But as Dan alluded to, if you as a landlord have that open communication with your tenants and maintain that relationship, that balance will hopefully equal out so that neither feels that they have more power than the other and it's an equal relationship.
Can I
I
ask a sub question to you,
sure.
Karen?
Yes.
So you're a tenant right now, yes? You're
No,
renting?
I own my
Oh, you
property.
own.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm in a
I was
condo.
thinking you were in a condo that where you were
Uh,
renting. And I
no,
was going
no,
to
I
ask
own.
what the shift was like going back. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Irrelevant
So
question.
Okay.
no, I completely understand. So this is a really interesting question for me, especially since in 2025 I started recording location specific podcasts. And so in the library right now there is so I'll do a state or a province or a territory, and right now I'm doing the US and Canada. I'm going to include Australia. I'm going to jump to Europe next. There's a bunch of things I'm going to do. But in that, I have developed what I call a bingo card. And a bingo card is everything on it.
Hey,
In fact, I can read it. Just some of the things that are involved. Tenant application fee, late fee amount, required maintenance inspections, how often the rent can be increased, defining landlord retaliation, things like that. And so asking, do landlords have too much power over tenants? For me, it's almost an unanswerable question. And here's why. It's like asking, do you still beat your wife? Because you can't say yes or no and be right. And so if I say yes, then landlords are more powerful than tenants. Tenants have no say or no way to fight back if something is unreasonable. Landlords would have unchecked power regarding access, rent increase amounts, how often they can increase the rent, how often they can do maintenance, retaliation. I mean, there's so many different things that the landlord can swing at. Quick evictions. I mean, unreasonable evictions. This is where I really have to look at this. If I say no, then that implies that the tenants are more powerful than the landlords. Then landlords would have no say or no way to fight back when something a tenant is doing or not doing or is unreasonable. And then the tenants would be unchecked in what they can do regarding squatting, not paying rent, disturbing other tenants, other mischief, just misbehaving in general, illegal pets, illegal occupants, things like that, illegal cars. And so it just depends on the geographic location. You absolutely nailed it, both of you, because it depends on the governing doctrine of that location, of all of the things that we just mentioned, plus lots more. And so then you've got the dispute aspect of it all. And so, how can you answer, do landlords have too much power over tenants? Where?
Yeah.
Unless you give it a context, I can't answer the question. There you go.
Good.
Any retorts? Anybody? No.
Fully agree.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Next question. Are we ready? Ready to move on? All right. Karen, this one's coming to you. What
Okay.
protections should renters have against sudden eviction? What protections should renters have against sudden eviction?
Well, first I would ask, what's the reason for the eviction?
Mm-hmm.
Is it an emergency where the house, there's been a fire, there's been something happening where it can no longer be occupied,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then I think that the landlord should have sufficient insurance as a landlord that not only protects them, but protects their tenants. And I would say in that case, then that assistance be provided to the tenant for 2 to 3 months, assisting them to
Mm-hmm.
find a new place, because when the tenant moves, has to move, there are tremendous costs. You
Mm-hmm.
have hookup fees for your hydro, your phone, whatever services you need in there. There's moving costs and things like that. So assisting the tenant in that matter, that should be part of the landlord's responsibility, and they should have insurance to cover that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if the sudden eviction is because of something that the tenant has caused, then I don't think there should be any protection for the tenant.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you discover that your tenant has a meth lab.
Oh,
There, yes, there should be out of there right away, like no recourse for the tenant. So it totally depends upon the reason for the sudden eviction. But I think that as a landlord, you have an obligation to protect your tenants if it was something within your control.
okay. I'll agree with all of that. And I think the key word in this question, what protections should renters have against a sudden eviction? Now, sudden means almost without warning. There's not a trend. This is something happened. And then an eviction, in my book, implies that the tenant has done something wrong. My
Hmm.
wording is ending a tenancy. Ending a tenancy, meaning the tenant didn't do anything wrong. Now, there's a debate on wording here, so we'll just leave it. But a sudden eviction means there's got to be something maybe criminally wrong. In your example, Karen, that you said about the meth lab, that's criminal. Like they're destroying the property. Like you can't get that house back easily. I mean, that's really bad. I've had guests on my show who have had this occur, and the house was really, really in bad shape because of this. So understanding. But if there's criminal activity going on, if there is violence or there is a fear for safety, right? Domestic violence stuff going on. What protections should renters have? In my opinion, none. None. But let's swing it the other way. Let's say, what protection should renters have against sudden ending of tenancy? So I agree with what you said about habitability. Everything that I'm looking at regarding location specific stuff always has some kind of habitability clause. The unit has to be habitable, it has to be up to code, it has to have essential services, it has to have all these different things. But as I'm getting more and more into the location specific podcasts, last night I did one on Quebec. I didn't know that in June of 2024, Quebec created a 3-year moratorium on landlords changing the footprint or enlarging or subdividing or changing the footprint so that the tenant would have to leave for 3 years. So if that is in their plans, if you're a landlord in Quebec and you want to change the layout or something in your unit, you cannot do that until June of 2027. And so that's where I'm like, okay, what protection? So in that case, the government's jumped in to stop. Now, is that the best course of action? I don't know. We've talked about in previous episodes, the three of us have talked about how government intervention on a wide scale is not necessarily the best thing. I don't know. I guess it just depends. It's got to be reasonable. If there's an eviction, if there's ending tenancy, it's got to be reasonable. It's got to make sense for that local area. And it's got to be able to be justified, because if the tenant pushes back and ends up in arbitration and it's not justified, well then the protection is the arbitration. So I don't know if I can fully answer this question either. Sorry. Okay, Dan, what do you think?
I think it's very important that there are protections for tenants. Because Jen and I talk so much about this, we have a similar vocabulary. So again, for me, I share eviction means that there's been a violation on the tenant's part for misbehaving, unless it is in British Columbia, we are allowed as landlords to end tenancy for somebody if someone from our family or if we are trying to move into the unit, as an example. But there are boundaries for that we have to give. So we have protection in this jurisdiction where it's several months, either warning or compensation or a combination of the two. And really, I think that's important. I think that's very appropriate in that sense, because a landlord who is going, well, I want this person out. I actually unwittingly helped somebody, a new landlord in our region, evict a tenant that I had helped the previous landlord find. I had actually traveled to another city, interviewed the person using some of Jen's material for the interview, and we decided this was an ideal tenant, and they are great tenants, Jake and Sarah. And the new owner came in and had a manager who said, we're moving the owner's family in. And I found out when I ran into Jake about 3 days ago at the lumber yard that that landlord never moved anybody into that house. And we put a lot of pressure on Jake to move out within the time frame that the law allowed, with a compensation package. So there was some compensation paid, but it was a huge deal. I look at that. There was as Karen pointed out, there were some huge costs. That was an eviction.
Mm.
And it was done within the parameters of the law, but there was deception. And there are a lot of landlords who will operate that way. And I think there should be something punitive for landlords who deceive the courts and who are deceptive in their practices. Just as I would like to have protection for the landlord that has the tenant in who plays that money game of, well, I'm allowed to push it to 3 months and things. So yes, I think there should be protections. The protections I think that we have in British Columbia are appropriate and fairly even-handed. And to be honest, when you've got a problem, either as a tenant or as a landlord, one of the biggest problems when you've got that kind of government bounding on is those institutions that judge what was it called, Karen? The tenancy board?
Oh,
You said
residential tenancy board.
Residential
Yeah.
tenancy
Oh,
branch.
yeah,
resident,
branch.
resident, and they are 2 to 3 years behind. So that doesn't help anybody. And that's why, again, I think that the best protection for a renter is do your homework on the landlord, see what their reputation is like. If your building gets bought by a new landlord, engage with them, be a good tenant, ensure that there is not a reason that they would want to put you out. I find healthy relationships between tenants and landlords is probably the foundational piece to just having an easy, low-cost life on both sides. Because it's also very expensive when a tenant moves out, you've got all the expenses as a landlord
Yeah.
of seeking time, interviewing, cleaning, painting, repairing things that the tenant quite often doesn't realize, they go, oh, it's just a nail in the wall, or it's just a nick. But that nail in the wall now means I've got to be able to match that paint. I've got to get somebody in, take the, so there's a few $100s just for that little dip in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's the next question?
Excellent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
who's doing it?
I think it's my turn to go first.
Okay.
Okay, Karen, what's the next question?
Should there be a renters union similar to a workers union?
Well, there already is. There's lots of them. In fact, I know there's one on Maui, the Maui Tenants Association, but there's one in Vancouver. In fact, there's one in Vancouver, Vancouver Tenants Union, .ca. And I know because I look at this stuff quite often, and they're very active and they're very, I want to say, influential on the BC Residential Tenancy Act and branch, and they're very involved. And quite frankly, sometimes I have to really read and see what is the legislation proposed, what are some of the things, even some of the conversations we've had here. I look at the Vancouver Tenants Union discussion page where I go, hey, you guys, if you start putting in sweeping, rental reform, that like one of the most recent one was the discussion in BC that was potentially going to be proposed, is that when a tenant departs a unit, then the landlord must keep the rent amount at the same rate. You cannot bump it up to market rate. That right there, that alone, if that would have passed, would have flooded the market with people selling their rentals, because the jump in the market rate for the newer available rentals is what allows landlords like me to afford the increases in insurance, the increases in property taxes, the increases in replacement costs, that in the assessed values that the city of Pearl River and other locations unapologetically and without notice increase. So that's the only way I can recoup these costs. So if you're going to tie my hands and fix revenue, then then I can't operate my business. It's not a charity. And so this is the kind of stuff I was looking at. But on the flip side, it's not just a tenants union. It's also landlords union as well, I think. And there's one in British Columbia, landlordbc.ca, landlordbc.ca. There's a members part and then there's a non-members part. I'm non-member, but I'm on all their newsletter mailing lists. And that's how I knew about the legislation getting proposed, is from landlordbc.ca and trying to understand a little bit more about what's going on. So is it important that everyone remain educated and you have these great conversations with like-minded people? Absolutely. The fact that it has the word union with it, does that matter? I don't think so. So should there be a renters union? There already is. Who's next?
I would like a minute to have a slight rebuttal to that one,
Go for it.
because
Let's rebut.
as somebody who I was a UAW shop steward, I've been a teamster, and I've been a manager at a refinery dealing with unions, and there's a huge difference between an association's power and a union's power. And if
Okay.
your building was to get unionized, you would only be allowed to rent out, I believe, I assume, to union members. So that would then mean that your tenants would have to join a union, and that they would not be free to contact you directly. You would be working through a third party. And for me, as somebody who has a history of studying and being in conflict resolution, when it's to do with your home, I think that would be a terrible solution. I do very much appreciate having the associations, but the power of a union in a home environment is something that would mean that I wouldn't be allowed to go directly to my landlord. And as somebody who wants to be able to go and advocate for myself, I don't want to give up my voice. I do not want to give up my power. And as a tenant in a building, I do have the ability to gather other tenants together and to take action against the landlord. There are things that I can do as a tenant that will bring pressure on the landlord without adding the complexity and the cost and everything like that for both the tenant and the landlord of an actual union. So my bias is there should be, I think it's important that landlords and tenants both have associations. I think a union would a union to me, when you have a union, as a manager, it means I've failed to manage efficiently and effectively. I've been heavy-handed, and as an employee, it means that we have felt disempowered. And I think unions are very, very good to have in certain situations, and this is one where I think it's not a good thing. And then when I talk to a friend of mine who's dealing with stuff down in Chicago, and I look at these massive slum landlord places where you've got thousands of units that are just not being maintained. In that case, I think there should be legislation to deal with that landlord, not a union. I think at that point you need civil action, both from the tenants and from the city, because that's not good for the city. It's not good to have people going to work who are stressed out and things, and it's just unhealthy. It creates health problems. There are indirect costs for being a bad landlord. And yeah, so, but no union for me.
Interesting
Associations or
perspective.
landlord.
Yeah. Well, and even though Vancouver Tenants Union.ca has the word union in it, it actually isn't a union based on your
Not a
definition.
union.
It's an
Yeah.
association. So, okay. I will concur. Yeah, I'll concur. Okay, Karen, now that we're all concurred, your turn.
So
No
I
pressure.
was I was a national vice president for my union, the Association of Canadian Financial Officers, and we represented the financial officers within the federal government in Canada. The first thing that I thought of when I saw this question is there is a lot of costs involved in running a union, right? You need to have resources for research. Like you might not be paying wages to any of the people that are involved in this, but there are costs involved. And so how do you recoup those costs? Do tenants, in order to use your service, have to pay or just for that service, or would they be contributing on a regular basis so that they're getting the benefit of it? Uh, I agree there should be some sort of an association that does provide support where the tenant can go and deal directly with the landlord, but sometimes they're not getting results and they don't know what their rights are. They don't know other information. And there should be some place available that they can go and ask for assistance. How is it paid for? I'm not sure. Would it be a fee for service? Would it be, if you want to be part of our association, you pay a minimal monthly fee just to help us keep operating? Again, the same for the landlords. Who pays for those services? But there should be something where there's an easy resource for people to go to rather than somebody going to the official legal documents and trying to understand what they mean, because sometimes they don't make sense. So
Yeah.
I agree there, yeah, there should be some sort of an association, whether you call it a union or an association, but it also needs to be worked out, the operating principles and who pays for it.
I will, just another plug for Toastmasters. I will say that in Toastmasters, you would gain skills as a landlord for how to manage things. you learn how to manage people, and you would also learn how to do some of the research. There are projects that you can do in your pathway, in your curriculum, that will help you if you are not confident, that will help you dealing with difficult situations, difficult people. There's another section that requires you to dig into a project, and you could use your relationship with your tenants or with your landlord as a project at Toastmasters. Inform yourself and make it so that it's easier for you to have a more balanced approach in your life. Because your life, I mean, you think about it, that this is your home or it's your business. And that is so core to our day-to-day anxiety. And it would be so nice to have it stress-free because people know how to communicate with each other. And that's what we specialize in at Toastmasters.
Love it. Well, Dan and Karen, thanks so much for being back on the show. I love doing these table topic questions with you guys because it sparks lots of conversation. It makes everybody critically think. It makes you change the way it just sort of skews your perception, which is great. And it really, it uncovers biases and uneducation. I mean, I've never been in a union. You both have. So this has been really interesting learning about that specifically today. We want to keep this conversation going. And we still have part 5 coming up, the final installment of this series. So we're going to talk about yet another aspect of landlording, table topic style, in the next episode for the rental roundtable. So if someone is interested in joining a Toastmasters club or the Money Matters Toastmasters club, how would they do that?
Well, we'll give you a link to put at the bottom of all of these talks for our club, and we will also include the Toastmasters International link. But if you don't see that link or you're not able to bring it up, just Google Toastmasters International. That will bring the site up. And as I said before, there is a place, find a club, give them your location that you're interested in. We are a global organization with hundreds of thousands of members. You will find a club that can help meet your needs. And the beauty of it is, if the evening doesn't work, we've got noon clubs, we've got morning clubs, all kinds of things in every area.
Yep. We have online clubs. You can also go to clubs in other countries.
Yeah.
You don't have to, you can do an online meeting in another country.
We actually had during COVID, there were 5 people who navigated around the globe. One guy did, I forget how many country meeting. It was 500 or 600 meetings he went to around the globe. And because he popped into our meeting one day and he goes, "Hi, how do you like me so far? I'm traveling around the globe." And then he goes, "Where am I? You know, where is this club centered? Because I don't know. I just found the club." So you can do that. And also, if you want to learn a language, then I would suggest join a remote Toastmasters club. I've got a good friend that is learning Chinese, and he lives in Powell River. He has joined the Mandarin speaking club in Vancouver, which is designed for helping people to learn Mandarin. And he then attends remote meetings over in China. And it really made a difference. He went to a conference in China, and when he got there, he got together with 4 people from clubs he had attended in China outside to have coffee with them. They traveled in to meet up with him. You do make good friends. It doesn't stay bounded to the things. I've gone and helped people from my club move. You can also build a speaking career as Jen did. When I met Jennifer, she was a shy, just she was just a naval officer. But you can build a career in speaking on your favorite topic. There is training in Toastmasters how to do podcasts and things like that. So jump in, explore, try the water out, explore the curriculum, and meet people. Don't be shy.
Excellent. Karen, any parting thoughts from you?
I am really enjoying these sessions and I am learning a lot from them. When I hear your responses, they do make me think and sometimes do change my point of view a little bit. So I am really learning a lot from this and am enjoying and participating. And I hope that people are learning a lot from what I have to share.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Great.
All right,
Jen,
stay tuned for.
when are you
Go ahead.
back in Harbor?
I don't know yet. Hang on a sec. Let me turn this off.
Okay.